Hey indie game fans, we are once again taking a look at some cool, smaller titles that I think are worth a play, starting with Dunk Lords. This 2v2 NBA Jam-like of a game was made by the programmer on Spelunky and features multiple unique playable characters, special skills, tweaks to the game of basketball, and more in this arcadey sports title. It hasn't really taken off, probably because people are unable to get together with their friends to play, but a great one to add to your repertoire whenever we can host LAN parties again. Puzzle platformers often come in 2D, so when a 3D one of these pops up, it does seem just a little bit more special, as was the case with Weakless last month. This has you controlling two characters, one which is blind and the other which is deaf, and they must work together to solve puzzles in order to save the world. I do like the look of this, which is quite beautiful indeed, but as with other games that have tried to portray blindness, it perhaps doesn't get it quite right. Regardless, a neat nature-themed one of these, which is quite well done. I love the Seralim series of monster taming RPGs since the procedural generation and infinite upgrade options can keep you occupied for days. So when I learnt of Trial of the Gods Seralim CCG, it did pique my interest. From the footage, you can clearly tell that it is inspired by Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII, only with their collectible monsters instead. Similar mechanics in terms of having to flip cards, but the sheer variety of monsters and their special abilities add to the variety. While this is not in early access, the developers are promising more future content, so something to think about. As a fan of traditional JRPGs, Pillars of Dust got my attention due to the look, which, while not modern high-bit pixel art, does have its charm and weirdness to it. The two playable characters and intersecting plots are interesting, with quite the classic turn-based combat system. However, there isn't an XP-based leveling system, but there are random stat increases, but the highlight has to be the funny writing. Good, shorter RPG experience, which is perfect for me. Grand Guilds from Filipino developer Drix Studios has been on my watch list since this is a strategy RPG in the vein of something like Sword Legacy Omen, where you have distinct characters that participate in combat on the grid. There's an epic story campaign spanning an entire continent on the brink of war, which is quite the classic setup.
Fight isn't over yet.
However, the deck building aspect is the most interesting part, since rather than having generic attacks or ones that are based on MP, this has you playing cards instead. So positioning and that little bit of luck plays into this.
Face judgment.
Decent look graphically, not really that stunning but good enough, so an interesting entry in the tactics genre. Hidden object games have gotten a bad rap and are largely associated with a more casual crowd, and what doesn't help is the sheer volume of such games being churned out by, I believe, largely Eastern European studios. This was why Hidden Folks was a breath of fresh air, bringing the classic book Where's Waldo onto your screens with a black and white art style that ended up looking pretty impressive, so naturally, the coloured version of that, Hidden Through Time, still gets some points since it is a well-made game, if a little derivative. There are fun time periods to explore and even supports level creation, so a good game but not all that original of an idea. If, on the other hand, you want to talk about an original idea, The Longing may fit that description in this list. You play as a lonely shade, the last servant of a king of an underground kingdom who needs to wait for 400 days while the king sleeps and regains his power. What you do in the meantime, however, is up to you. Do you explore the kingdom, dig and expand the land, read a book, or just sit around and do nothing? In perhaps a bizarre twist of fate, this, unfortunately, has become the daily routine for many of us, so I can see why this game is as popular as it is, but a very interesting concept nonetheless. According to the developer, you can just log out of the game and return 400 real days later to see the ending, but seems very cleverly designed and one for adventure game fans. The footage of this is not so accurate since it is largely cinematic, but Last Oasis is a survival MMO in the style of Ark Survival Evolved, where nomadic tribes and their mobile bases roam the land. The art and design of these bases got my attention when I first saw them, and it seems like that sort of survival game experience, which still seems to be tremendously popular given the number of reviews. The developers did take the game off the store after launch to fix server issues and bugs, and while it has stabilized, some people are complaining about balance issues, but as expected, the largest tribe would have the advantage. Very promising, so do check in. If you want something a little more light-hearted, I would recommend Half Past Fate. This is a charming rom-com adventure with a beautiful art style, using 2D sprites in a 3D environment to great effect. It is a time-jumping adventure, following 6 characters over 8 years, of how their lives intertwine and how fate has a funny way of bringing people together. It just looks so heartwarming and delightful, a little bit in the slice of life vein, which is not usually my thing, but for some reason this one stands out. I'm not usually a fan of grand strategy titles, but this developer did reach out and give me a key, so based on what I have played of Panzer Corps 2, I think that it is pretty well made. Set in World War II, command your troops and embark on a campaign of conquest as you command tanks, planes, infantry, and more. As with all war-themed games, it's a little bit iffy to classify these as fun, given the gravity of the situation, but a well-made, good-looking strategy game. Another interesting roguelite RPG is Bonfire, which, contrary to the deck building trend, has gone old school in a sense, with JRPG turn-based combat. It's a little bit on the simpler side of things, without an elaborate story for example, but you assemble a party of adventurers, fight enemies, participate in random events, and go after the faceless overlord who caused the collapse of our heroine's world. There are multiple characters and classes, so party composition is critical, where skills and abilities should complement each other. It's also designed to be bite-sized and relatively short per run, so again, perfect for the busy person, and I'm interested to see the updates to this one. I last covered Seals of the Bygone in a video on upcoming roguelite platformers, and similar to the recently mentioned The Cork, Cave Blazers and Risk of Rain, sports a similar art style which I do enjoy. Monsters from the void are escaping and terrorizing the world, so you need to pick a character, destroy all enemies, and seal the rifts. Each character class has unique abilities, with procedurally generated levels and over 50 unlockable items, which keeps things fresh. There are also RPG mechanics in stat progression, so a little bit different, but it does feel very much like Risk of Rain 1, which is not a bad thing. Great first step and waiting to see more. Reductively, For the Warp is FTL meets Slay the Spire, where you need to navigate through the galaxy, finding warp gates in order to deliver your cargo. Quite a standard roguelite deck builder at the moment, but absolutely gorgeous pixel art and space backgrounds. There also appears to be some balancing issues, as is expected of an early access title, so one to keep an eye on for the future.
In a world gone mad, only one paddle stands between destruction and salvation.
The simplicity of Pong as a concept is one that many people are familiar with, and is one of the most basic and classic games, so when I saw Hypergalactic Psychic Table Tennis 3000, which promised RPG mechanics, I was interested to see what they did with the game, and boy, is it impressive. Become the ultimate pedal champion by upgrading stats, equipping loot and equipment, learning new skills, casting spells and romancing other pedals. Super weird and unique, which is what I love to see in indie games. Also of note is that this is from developer Blue Wizard Digital, one of my favorites since they made Stay Away Camp and Space Tyrant, so this game is perhaps the definition of a hidden gem.
Wear undies on your head. Ride majestic beasts. Full voiceover by Mark Meir. Conversate with enemy paddles. Learn their weaknesses and secret thoughts. Then, romance them. Oh yeah. Become a hypergalactic psychic table tennis champion.
Fireball. Sympathy. Heal.
Hypergalactic psychic table tennis 3000.
I have to thank you guys again since a channel member pointed out Dimension Reign to me, a roguelite deck builder from a mid-sized Japanese developer. In the weeks since launch, this has gotten an English language patch, which will make it more accessible to a Western audience, and is that same sort of procedurally generated turn-based combat that we have all come to know and love. However, it does have a few tricks up its sleeve, since you alternate between two characters and there is an increased focus on aggression, since depleting an enemy's health meter causes a break, giving you an additional turn with increased damage as well. Cards are also not randomly drawn, where instead you have breakable weapons with different effects, and has a sense of style and aggression not commonly seen in such turn-based card games. Permanent progression and unlocks, in terms of abilities and leveling of the different class variants of your two main characters, also keeps the loop compelling, with its tweak on the relic system as well. As Bloodborne was to Dark Souls, this is to Slay the Spire, taking the #1 spot. If you enjoyed the video, why not share it with a friend? Check out even more great indie gaming videos, and in this current climate, stay safe and I will see you after the jump.